This episode of That Mental Ginger Show is sponsored by Roots and Rays Photography. In the entertainment business, having a good headshot is crucial to landing a gig. You don't have a good headshot, you ain't going to get work, which is why I highly recommend Roots and Rays Photography. Roots and Rays made me feel really at ease. We got some great headshots and somehow managed to turn this 35-year-old piece of dog meat into a work of art. For more information, visit www.rootsandrays, all one word, .co.uk or drop them an email at rootsandraysphotography, all one word, at gmail.com. Who knows, if you tell them Andrew sent you, they might do you a wee deal. And once again, thank you to Roots and Rays Photography, not just for doing my headshots, but for sponsoring this video. I really appreciate it. On today's episode of That Mental Ginger Show, we are talking to comedian Martin Mor. Martin was such a blast. He's a real breath of fresh air. There was so much stuff that we covered in it. I'm actually really buzzing from it. It was such a good laugh. So let's cut to the intro and get straight into the podcast, shall we?
All right, troops.
Martin, a pleasure to have you on the podcast, my friend. How are you getting on?
I'm not too bad, thank you very much. It's very nice to be here. Nice to see you.
Yeah, well, it's great to have you on, man. For so long I have witnessed the majesticness of your beard, and now I can actually see it. Because that beard is something else, man. That's something that I am envious of. How long did it take you to grow that thing?
So I've had a beard for I think about 26 years, maybe longer.
Yeah.
And but it started out, it was as red as your beard when it started, and then it gradually got grayer and grayer over the years. But here, I believe that a man reaches maximum length of their beard in 6 years. So whatever length your beard would be after 6 years, that's as long as it's going to be.
So that's as far as it will go, essentially.
Yeah. So I cut the bottom off mine about now. When it's about this length, because it literally starts getting stuck.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Wow. The dedication to that beard was absolutely amazing. I mean, every time I see it, I'm like, wow, what is his secret to that beard success?
See, everybody says this. Everybody says, oh, dedication to the beard. This is not, you just leave it. This is the whole Don't do anything. Leave yours. Don't do anything. Come back to me in 6 years' time. You'll have a beard. You'll have a big beard.
Nice. Well, that's an insider beard tip from the man that knows how. So, Martin, what I like to do to start off the podcast is to get my guests to tell them about their origin story, because the one thing we've all got in common is that we all have an origins. So, Martin, for my faithful followers, please tell us your origin story.
So, I started off working on fairgrounds. And then I became a circus performer as a circus act. I still am a circus act, still tour with the circus show. And then, long story short, broke my ankle training in the 1990s, training to take a circus show into Europe and travel in Europe. In a training accident, broke my ankle, was off work, met Dave Gorman, the English comedian Dave Gorman, who I already knew, met him in the street. And he said, oh, there's a new comedy club has opened in Manchester. Why don't you go and give that a go? And started doing stand-up comedy, and then I've been doing it ever since.
Wow. So what was like your skill set for when you performed in the circus? That's something that's really fascinating. What you'll find that I'll go in tangents, just be like, whoa, circus, I need to know about this.
Yeah. When I started, I was a juggler, and I was kind of I refer to it as a Vegas style juggler. So I didn't have a beard at the time. White tuxedos, to music, all kind of Shazam kind of juggling. Yeah. And then in that world, you have to be quite diverse in that you can't just have one act, and hardly anybody makes a living off one act. Yeah. So I also had a unicycle act and a freestanding ladder act, all kind of based around juggling. And then I did do comedy circus as well, so like comedy juggling acts. So when I started into stand-up, it wasn't a huge leap into the unknown. I had kind of been getting laughs already anyway.
Wow. So how many juggling balls can you juggle?
So interestingly, at the minute in the show, I'm doing 5 in the show. I have been able to do more, but I had a problem. So I had don't know if you can see it on there. I've had some operations. I have a hereditary condition in my hands which makes your fingers curl up. It's the same as he has got. It's called Dupuytren's contracture. So a few years ago, I'd spent about nearly 10 years being like this all the time. And so I could only juggle very little. And then I had some successful operations, 3 operations, and back to hands are working a bit. So I'm juggling again in the shows.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's nice because I thought I'd not be doing that ever again. So it's nice to be able to do it again.
That's amazing. Like, I can barely look at one juggling ball, let alone like 5 of them. That's fantastic, man. But in the unicycling, well, I've got to ask, how many times did you fall off?
Oh, all the time. So it was at the start when you're learning it, it is just falling off all the time. And then by the end of so the one I had was an 8-foot one, and it feels like it was really different times because like I used to come off stage and ride it through the audience and stuff. And you sort of think these days, that would have been the 1990s. I kind of think these days with health and safety, you might not get away with that kind of carry on.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, I mean, that's definitely like danger money right there. You should, if you were doing it now, you would have to get paid a lot more.
Definitely.
So, is there like the only like other experience I've had, like with circuses, aside from going to them, was watching things like The Greatest Showman. Is what I mean, obviously that's no true because that PT Barnum was like a massive bell end. But did you have like a PT Barnum type there? Did he keep these in cages? What was the deal?
No. So generally speaking, there were mostly like family based circuses that were going around, and in Ireland's mostly family based, and a lot of that traveling circus that would have had animals that don't have animals anymore. The big one now, of course, Cirque Du Soleil is the big circus organization, which is probably the modern day equivalent of like what Barnum would have been like. That's huge, isn't it? They're a huge. They're the biggest producer of live entertainment in the world. Cirque du Soleil, proper big dude.
Yeah, definitely. I was just, I hope you didn't like take offense to asking, but I was just generally curious, because it's a lifestyle that you don't hear a lot about these days. And when people hear about it, they instantly jump to the stereotype of PT Barnum, bearded ladies, locking them in cages, and all that kind of stuff. I was like, especially because the 90s was when I was growing up, going to the circus with family. And when I was a kid, I was scared shitless going to the circus because I'm a massive wimp. But knowing about all this stuff is really fascinating to me.
Lifestyle thing's a good point because most people I know, so I ended up that I did more like the comedy circuit is now. So I did a lot of cabarets and a lot of events were like one-off events. So you went on your own and you performed on your own. And all my friends that stayed in like traveling circus, they all it was all for the lifestyle. It was all about the lifestyle. A couple of friends of mine were making really good money on the corporate entertainment scene, but they started traveling with small family circuses, and they live in a caravan and they help put the tent up and all that old fashioned stuff. And they absolutely love that. And there's definitely something to be said for that kind of lifestyle.
You think it is the kind of like, not like, I'm not saying, like just make it sound old because obviously it's not, but it's kind of like a simpler time, whereas it was like you got the caravan, off you went, you set it up, you entertained, you back down, off you go to another place. You think maybe that's like, do you think that's still part of it, or is it something that's missing from like kind of modern like circus acts and stuff?
I think for us now, we've just got so much entertainment, haven't we? At one point, they would have, the circus or the fair or something would have turned up once a year. And that was the major event of the year. And people thousands of people would go and see them. But now we've got it all we've got so much stuff just on our phone, haven't we? And so I think it's different now. I think, but people still go to those big events. But Cirque du Soleil, they've got massive audience.
There's one that we have over in Scotland, like the Iron Brew Carnival. And it's really big and it's really popular, and that's something. Are circus and carnival two separate things? Is it like if someone like confused like rugby with American football kind of thing? We go, no, there's a difference.
So they generally would be they generally would be different. One of the things with the older type thing was that the circus would have like a little fair around it, and it would have like stalls and so on. And a thing that a lot of people don't realize is that's where they would make a lot of their money. But
Yeah.
like candy floss is the single biggest markup because it's basically just sugar, isn't it?
Yeah.
So all of that stuff that was kind of be around a circus that they were in control of, like the burger van and the candy
Yeah.
floss and the sweetie stall and all that stuff. That's where the real money was being made.
Wow. Well, and it's something that is so candy floss is just basically like sugar and some coloring, and that's really it, isn't it? But it's
Sugar
just
and
so good.
clouds, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it's like what it's awesome. I mean, just hearing this kind of stuff is so it's so nostalgic, but at the same time, like it's really piquing my curiosity. I'm like, I wish I could do like a that mental ginger show circus, just like a one-off, and just get all the guests or just do like a massive stand-up tour, or like get you on, come on, like unicycle while juggling 5 balls. Like, so many things are just running through my head right now. I'm like, this is what we need back. There's a good sense of culture, a good sense of community about it, I felt.
There is now, there is now all of this stuff still all existing, but I think it's existing in just in different areas now that people might not encounter it unless they go and look for it. But like for example, now it used to be in the 80s when I lived in Belfast,
Yeah.
you could, if you saw somebody with juggling equipment like in their rucksack, you would have gone and said hello to them and gone, "Oh my God, are you a juggler? We're all
Yeah.
jugglers. Come and meet us." And we met several people like that were backpacking and fell into the company, and we'd have a drink with them and stuff. And yet now everywhere there's juggling. Every town has a juggling club, and yeah, it's like massive business now, which is good.
Yeah, that's brilliant. What Belfast during the 80s? I mean, what was it like growing up at that time? Like you hear the stories, but like what was it like? Were you scared to go out during that time, or was it just like, hey fellow juggler, let's go somewhere. Don't care if it's a juggler or a bomb in your backpack, let's go.
Yes, it was funny. It was of course horrible times, of course, but it was actually really good times as well. And that thing about being scared to go out, you just got used to it. I remember when I first moved to Belfast, as an adult, and being in the pub, and the police came in and said, "Oh, everybody out the pub! There's a bomb! Everybody get out!" And I remember looking around and being surprised that nobody bothered to get up, and the police had to come and force people to go out. So there kind of was an atmosphere of it's going to happen,
Yeah.
kind of vibe. But at the same time, it was really great place to be for the arts, because nobody really came. There weren't a lot of bands and stuff came over to perform in Northern Ireland because of the Troubles.
Yeah.
So it meant there was a really great nightlife scene of homegrown entertainment, which was great, and it also meant that if you did anything that was non-sectarian, you could get great funding from the Arts Council. Wow. So I was really lucky that in my 20s, I got some great training with like some of the top teachers in the world, circus tutors, because the Arts Council would fund it as long as it was non-sectarian. There was loads of money available, and which was a side effect, a good side effect of something horrible.
Yeah, definitely. And so do you feel like kind of like, see when COVID hit and everybody was like, it was the same kind, not the same, because Troubles were obviously a lot worse in my opinion, but like it was the case of don't go out and then eventually get to, if you get it, you get it. Was that kind of how you looked at it as well? Like when it was the Troubles, it's like, if this happens, it happens. It can't stop us living our lives, kind of deal.
Yeah, well, sure, that's exactly what has happened, isn't it? It's exactly like that. The same as the way COVID went from at the start, everybody really scared and really not going out, to just people going, I can't keep doing this. And even more in certainly in Belfast, it got even more that there's a proper party town in all through the 80s. Like you could find a party every night of the week. It was there was a really lively town. It still is a really lively town.
Yeah, definitely. I love Ireland mainly because it's that one place I can go and I know I won't get sunburned. And it's like I'm like this is like my second home. Like I'm okay with it. Like, and it was the only place I could go where like I could start drinking at 8 o'clock in the morning and you were seen as a latecomer.
Yeah.
Like, so I was because I don't drink anymore. Like, but back when I did, I remember I just went out and just got drunk for 4 days. And I just thought that was just like a slow weekend. It was fantastic.
Yeah. It's still like that in Belfast with the student scene. There's still a real party scene happening.
Yeah. So what's coming up for you comedy wise? Like, tell me about like the latest ventures for you.
Oh, so it's all now. It's all Edinburgh Fringe, all Edinburgh Fringe now. So I've just finished a tour. I'm in a circus double act. So we just finished a UK tour about a month ago, and
Nice.
now everything focuses on Edinburgh. And the really weird, I'm kind of used to it now, but the weird thing that happens is Edinburgh now is it's all write the show, get everything ready for Edinburgh, get the publicity done, but also right now all the applications and the admin side for the Australian festival season. It starts now for next year because their festival season starts in January.
Yeah.
So you're just about to do Edinburgh, which is the biggest one in the world.
Yeah.
But your thoughts are all now starting to have to look towards January next year for that to happen as well. So it's a lot of writing in a notebook and trying stuff out at comedy gigs. Yeah. And then a lot of that, like a major amount of admin.
Yeah. So what would you say was like the kind of, say like if you had a top 5 of festivals kind of around the world, like we've mentioned Edinburgh and we mentioned Australia. What are the other, like if you had to pick 3 more that were key ones that you would go, I need to get on that, what would they be? Because you only really hear about like Edinburgh, and I've heard about Australia as well.
Oh man, there's so many great ones. I've done on every continent pretty much. Well, not Antarctica, but on every continent I've done festivals, and they've all got their own charm. Some of them tend to be like just for laughs in Canada, a more very industry kind of vibe to it.
Yeah.
Some of the other ones, one of the best ones I've ever done was the Johannesburg Comedy Festival. Wow. And it was really, really great. Because you're in Africa, because you get to be in Africa. So it's a really good, different festival for me.
Yeah.
The Australian ones tend to be a little bit like mini versions of Edinburgh. They've sort of copied the vibe of Edinburgh.
Yeah.
Edinburgh's bigger than them all. Edinburgh's stupid big. It's just have you been to the Edinburgh Fringe?
Oh yeah. Well, I've never performed at it, never been lucky enough to perform at it, but I've been a lot and just it's like my feet are Mecca, or just my Mecca for any type of arts. It's like got to go. I haven't been able to go recently because like obviously tight budget, looking after kids, all that kind of stuff. But when I did go, I just loved to be a part of it and just walking around and the amount of flyers that you would get. Well, you just would be like, I wonder how many trees I've got in my hand right now.
Well, so this is the decision. We made this decision today. Was that we're so I've got 3 shows at the Fringe this year. Circus Sonus Family Show, which is a kids circus show that I do with another guy called Logie Logan.
Nice.
Another show called Dirty Tattooed Circus, and it's me and Logie doing an adult circus show.
Yeah.
And then I'll do my solo show. And just this morning, we made the decision that the standard thing for Edinburgh would be 5,000 flyers for every show. That's like the standard thing. I always hated that anyway.
Yeah.
We're going to do this year, we're going to have 500 flyers with the kids show on one side and the adult show on the other side. Then I'll have a flyer for my own stand-up show, and we're only going to do 500 of each. And we're trying to use those QR codes so that leads people to videos and stuff. And then we're also I've got 2 old iPads, and I'm just trying to make sure that that's what I was doing before I spoke to you. I'm just checking it's working, because we're going to give that to the people that would normally flyer for us. Wow. So they'll just show somebody the poster on the iPad.
That's fantastic.
They can show a little video, and then if the person likes it, they can just scan it with their phone and it goes straight to the ticket office. So we think this is a better idea than
that is really amazing. Wow, it's so clever, it's innovative. Wow, it's obviously eco-friendly. Wow, and it's essentially like taking YouTube and just going, right, there you go. It's like you're taking like the online bit and going, you want to go see this guy? I'm not sure. Well, this is what he's like.
Yeah.
Up your street. Yep. Just hit that button. Boom. Done.
Yeah, it's great.
So that's amazing, man. That's really inventive. Props to you, my friend.
Also, because money's tight for a lot of people. So that's why they will go and see, they'll spend their money. I know Frankie Boyle or Jimmy Carr or somebody like a big TV name. People will go and see them because they know what they're getting. But with the other acts on this, they're taking a chance often. They're taking a bit of a gamble. So if they can have a wee look at something that would, especially, I think it's good advertising. If you can go, have a look at this. If you like it, come and see it. And it sort of throws the ball into their court rather than them having to take a chance on it. They can see. So, and I've got footage up there of a previous Edinburgh show on YouTube. So they can go and see it. They can go and exactly see the style of thing that they're going to get. And on the plus side for me is that we don't really want people. We want the right people. We don't want people that have come to a show that it's not the show that they thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
So it's good for everybody, isn't it?
No, definitely, man. It's fantastic. It's like how when actors apply for roles like this, like they want like a show reel so they can see your kind of stuff of what you've done previously and like if you would fit that type of part they're looking for. It's no different but for stand-up comedy as well.
Yeah, it's just giving people more choice, isn't it?
Exactly, and you're doing it like in a really innovative and fresh way, and that's always what people like to see. That's a unique kind of angle, a unique edge. I think you maybe need to try and leave this till after the Fringe so that nobody copies you, so you can still get your sales.
Man, I've been telling people about this because I'd be happy for everybody. I think this is the way forward because if people copy that and it saves all them flyers, on the last day of the Fringe. So when the Fringe ends, generally what happens is you finish your show in the night, and then the next day you've got to clear the venues as quick as possible. So you go around the venues, and outside every venue, they nearly all have one of them big double, it's like a big skip, isn't it, that you have in Scotland with the lids like that. And they're just full of flyers. And it's people have cleared their venues, and it's the leftover flyers. And honestly, it's thousands upon thousands of flyers. And it's just such a waste of, when you think of all the printing and the paper and the transporting it there. And I think flyers will be, they'll be a thing of the past soon.
Yeah, well, if people have the same kind of ideas that you've got, and the really innovative ideas that you've got, I could guarantee that. And it's something that I've never been a fan of is flyers, because it's something if you give that to somebody, something that you've taken a lot of time to come up with the designs and come up with and the cost of getting it printed, and someone has a look at it, and then 2 seconds later they fling it in the bin, it's really soul destroying. When I did that with a theatre company, and I did the wee kind of flyer campaign, and the amount of people that would go, fling, it just breaks your heart.
Yeah, I've tried various things in the past. I had I've got some here. Look, these are some leftovers that I found the other day. So I tried.
Wow!
Button badges.
Yeah.
So these were from a show. Maybe I think that was 2015's show. So I tried to have badges, and we've tried stickers. Tried all sorts of stuff. Tried where's this? Yeah, look, I've got this thing, which is I'm digging all this out because we're literally getting ready for Edinburgh now, so it's why it's on the hand. So this was a thing where it's a rubber stamp, and it was for the kids shows, so the kids would hold the thing. I'd have a post-it, and then I let them rubber stamp it themselves. So they had a little post-it that they'd made themselves. So yeah, it's always just trying to think of something that works, but that's also fun and all that.
Definitely. But because I remember when I done the fundraiser for my Flower of Scotland cover, and I done the badges, and the majority of them are still sitting in my bag. It was like the people that wanted them were like, well, hey, we'll get them, and then they never got them, and you're like, really? You don't know how much it costs to get the badges done?
Yeah, it's fun with all that stuff as well, isn't it? That when it gets cheaper, the more that you get. So if you're buying, 500 flyers is probably going to cost as much as 2,000 flyers, because once they're running the things. So I think it means that people always tend to just go for more because it's not costing much more to do it. But of course it is costing more with all the mess and all that stuff.
I'm getting to the stage now where at the time of this recording, my company's officially been set up, and people have been asking about business cards. I'm a bit hesitant about it because I feel like again you pay less for more, then you wind up not using them. And again, it could be the same thing of putting business card away. What's your thoughts on it? Something that's quite innovative.
Yeah, so I've seen it come and go in various forms with business cards. So in the 80s, very much standard that you had a business card. Very much standard you had business cards. And in those days, I had hand printed, silk screened them myself in a local art community place. So
Yeah.
they were unusual because business cards in those days tend to just be standard printed because the 80s, it's a long time ago. There wasn't the technology to get, like, you wouldn't have had a business card with a photograph on it. That would have been
Yeah.
so expensive. So in those days, I hand did them, and they were very popular. Well, everybody had business cards. And then it sort of died out in the 90s that it wasn't so popular. And there were some comedians who'd come from the business world, like Jimmy Carr,
Yeah.
John Bishop. They always had business cards. And I always had business cards for my circus stuff, but never for my stand up. And then I feel they've come back round again now. And with technology, it's made them really affordable. And I actually do a thing like this. I'll show you. Because we're in my little office, I have all this stuff to hand.
I'm loving this. It's brilliant. Such a great wee treasure trove. I'm loving
So
it.
I make these tiny little. I use these tiny little business cards that are this big. So it's like half the size of a card.
Yeah.
But the company allows you to you can have a different image on.
Awesome.
So you can have as many, if you bought 600 and you had 600 high quality images.
Yeah.
So there's an image from, I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, so there's
got it. There we go.
And then my current Edinburgh show is using this little photograph. So this image. So yeah, so there's the circus show that I do. It's called Circus Sonus. So there's the business card for that. So I think it's great because you can actually, instead of having 600 of the same thing, which will outlive its life, for the same price, you can get 600. You could have 600 different photographs if you wanted to.
Wow, that is fantastic. Well, I'll definitely need to look into something like that. That's something, again, really innovative and really creative. I always love stuff like that. It's so fascinating.
And it moves so fast, doesn't it? It's moving on so fast now. With there'll be brand new ideas happening, right? Like apparently now, I only heard this today. Apparently, if you've got a certain a new enough telephone, if I was to take a photograph of you now on the screen, and you had one of those QR codes, modern camera will find the QR code, even if it doesn't look like a QR code, and could automatically take you. So you could have your QR code disguised as a design, and it just looks like your backdrop or your little logo or something there. And I just have to point the camera at this, and it would take me to your website or wherever you wanted it to be.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is really interesting. Man, the stuff they can come up with these days is crazy.
It's great, isn't it?
Yeah. I also see you've got a couple of guitars in the background. You got a good musical past life as well.
So previously, before I had my hand problems, I was always having musical stuff in shows and so on, and just for being spending so much. I've got ukuleles there because I was spending so much time in hotel rooms.
Oh, nice.
But this year for Edinburgh, I'm trying to work a new musical thing. You know, when we were talking before, I said I have some trouble with tech. Yeah. So I'm trying to do some electronic music. I've got a new idea. I don't want to tell you the new idea because it's not working yet, but involving some tech and some samplers and stuff. And I'm trying to figure that all out because it's brand new. I like to do something brand new every Edinburgh. So having electronic music in it is this year's new idea. But it's meaning like I'm knee deep in cables. And attachments and speakers and different things, and it's
I know that feeling all too well. Definitely. But we are starting to call it one time. I now call Zoom my producer because it gives you the whole, you have 10 minutes left in your thing, and I'm like, okay, Zoom, you're my producer now. I hate you with that same passion. So I'll ask you the same question that I ask all my guests. If you were to give one piece of advice to anybody that's struggling with mental health issues at this point in time, what would that piece of advice be and why?
So I think So this is something I've been thinking about quite a lot. So during the lockdown, I used the chance during lockdown because of my teaching that I do. So I do online Zoom teaching. I work at a circus school and stuff. And
Nice.
what I did with that was I did an autism awareness course
Mhm,
online, and I did my mental health first aid
mhm.
training
Yep.
online. And then I went off. I also did an actual first aid in the workplace. I did a face to face training with that. So it's something I've been thinking about quite a lot. And I think that the one piece of advice that I would say is for the person to acknowledge it to themselves. You know, they say, oh, tell people and talk to other people. I think a lot of people don't want to admit to themselves that they're upset or they're struggling or something's difficult. And I think that admitting it to yourself's got to be the first, and like being gentle with yourself about it has got to be the
Mhm.
first stage.
Yeah. No, definitely. Like, it is one of the things that it's so hard to admit to yourself that there is something that's not quite right. I mean, you know, it took me a long time to admit it, and then what? Now I'm essentially making a career off it. I'm like, well, fair
Mm.
dues. What, trying to raise awareness and just,
Well,
you know, have a
and it's that,
laugh.
you know, it's that thing in that, you know at school, when we was at school, and they like you didn't want to be seen to be struggling because the
Hmm.
teacher would be hard on you. I always remember thinking that. I can't remember who I heard this from, but somebody said this thing that if you speak to a child, the teacher's got primary school kids, and the
Hmm.
teacher goes to the kid and says, "What's two and two?" And if the kid just sits there blankly, the teacher will go, come on, what do you know? Answer, answer." So the kid goes, makes like a thinking face. Oh, two and two, what is that? Oh, two and two, oh. And that's encouraged. But we don't need to make that face in order to think. Actually,
Hmm.
sitting quietly thinking is the right way to think. So
Yep.
they've taught us to pretend at school, pretend we're trying, pretend we're thinking, and also pretend we're not struggling. So it's
Hmm.
that thing in that very Irish thing, I think, is how are you doing? Not too bad. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, maybe you are doing bad, and there's nothing wrong with it, with admitting it, and even if it's just to yourself, isn't it?
Definitely. It's something that what I've noticed, like when my boys come back from nursery, what sometimes they've come home and they're upset or whatever, and I'm like, oh, what's up, and they're telling me like, what big boys don't cry, and I'm like, who's telling you that? And they're like, what nursery? And I'm like, that's not right. I was like,
Mm,
your dad's a big boy, your dad cries. He's like, you cry? I'm like, yeah, yeah, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. Gets the
mm.
boo-hoos out. It's much healthier than turning to drink or punching a wall or whatever. Well, it's much better than that. It's like, so it is okay to cry. Boys do
Yeah.
cry. Like
So
big boys cry, men cry. Everybody does.
this
Uh,
thing now of it's a new expression to me, but this toxic masculinity.
yes.
And you've heard that expression, and it's that, and that
Mm-hmm.
boys don't cry, and you've got
Man up.
to be a man and fight and all that kind of stuff. And the thing with that is, I really relate to that because that was all the men that I knew, like the older men were always being like that. And
Mm-hmm.
hopefully we're able to change, because I think they're saying toxic masculinity with it. And I think it should be called contagious toxic masculinity,
Mm-hmm.
because people pass it on to the young fellas that look up to somebody that's like that,
Yep.
like the big fighter or something. That's passing that problem on. So
Mm-hmm.
it is contagious. So every time, like you say to your Waynes, but your boys do cry. That's great, isn't it? Because it's
Mm-hmm.
maybe just stopping some of that moving on. Maybe they say to their friends at school, and we can spread this more positive thing, can't we?
Yep. Definitely. And it's just little steps that'll make the big difference in the end, won't it?
Yes, I think so. And if it makes a difference, it only needs it only needs one other person to hear it, and it help. Like you're talking on your show, on your YouTube show, and
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned one thing that even if it just brightens that one person's day or gives them a wee hand on that
Mm-hmm.
day, sure,
Yeah.
that's not to be underestimated, in my opinion.
Definitely. What is the main reason I do it. If I can make someone smile just for a little bit, or just take a wee bit of worry away, then it's worth it.
And
Yeah.
at the circus school I work at, we work quite a lot with autistic children, and
Mm.
I very much go. it's little victories. Sometimes it's little tiny things that happen that made something better in that moment or in that child's day or in my day. And those little things, it don't have to be earth shattering. And even these tiny things are definitely a little victory along the way.
Yeah, definitely. Martin, you have been an absolute blast to talk to. Like, seriously, like, it's just so much knowledge and so much like innovation and like freshness from you. Like you've really brightened up my day. Like, I wish you nothing but success at Edinburgh. Like, if I can get along, I definitely will. Like, give me some links like for my followers. Where can they find you?
So you can so one of the things that might be fun is if people look on YouTube, it's called Funny Happy Stuff. And if you look at Funny Happy Stuff, in lockdown I did a whole load of juggling tutorials and they're all there free, how to juggle. So that might be a good fun thing for people to do. Yeah. If you just Google Martin Mor, you'll find me. We're at Edinburgh with the kids show, Circus Sonus family show, and the adult show, Dirty Tattooed Circus, and then my own solo show is called The Antidote. And some of the things we spoke about, like toxic masculinity, some of those things are mentioned in the show. Mental health's mentioned a little bit in the show. Positivity's mentioned in the show. So maybe that might be something people are interested in along the way.
Definitely. Like, any links I can get, they'll be in the description below. Like, make sure you like, subscribe, follow. Like, give this guy as much support as you can because, well, as I always say, like a lot of the guests, but he's fucking awesome. He's amazing. Well, absolutely brilliant. Well, Martin, thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute delight to speak to you.
Well, thanks for having me and good luck with it all. Nice to speak to you.
Yeah, thank you. And until next time, my faithful followers, take care. Stay safe. Bye-bye.